Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
Today's guest, including Ian Furness standing by, brought to you by the Bayside Oceanfront Resort. Christmas is in the air at the Bayside this holiday season, which means there are deals to be had. When staying now until February 29th, when you stay a minimum of 2 nights, weekends included, the Bayside wants to give you 25% off their best rate. Must call and book directly through the hotel. From everyone at the Bayside, they wish you and your loved ones a joyful holiday season. Call 250-248-8333 to book today. Joining us now from KJR Sports Radio in Seattle, Fox 13 Sports, Ian Furness, Seahawks and Dallas on Thursday, second straight Thursday game for the Seahawks. Ian, thanks for doing this, sir. How are you?
Gentlemen, hello. Where's the Bayside? Is that in Victoria or is that in the lower mainland, as you would say?
Parksville, on Vancouver Island.
Vancouver Island.
Okay.
Yeah, beautiful area. Well,
yeah. Why don't you send your friend Ian up there sometime? Let's go. Why don't you guys join me? We'll have some fun, huh?
Let's go. Goes with us saying, as soon as we can get some paraphernalia from KJR Sports Radio, like a hat or a hoodie.
Seahawks tickets.
Like that would be good.
Let me see. Paraphernalia. That has a different meaning down here where marijuana is legal, but I can get that for you if you like. You looking for the KJR bong or water filtration smoking device? Is that what you're looking for?
Ian, it's Vancouver. We got all that stuff up here. We have for a long, long time.
All right, I'll see what I can do for you.
Hey, what's your problem and the Kraken fan base's problem with Tyler Myers, the poor guy?
Yeah.
He's a big dummy, first of all. Where do I start? It's not just him, right? Because part of the blame has to lay on the Kraken because there is no response. But then who's going to respond? It's just watch this hit. I'm watching it right now.
There you go.
1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. Come on, late. There, it used to be you finish your check. Well, the puck's got to be somewhere in the area code, doesn't it? Come on. But if I'm him, why wouldn't you take a run at a guy? Who's going to do anything about it, right? No one did anything about it, and he's been able to run around like a fool all the time. Does he do that when Evander Kane's on the ice? I'll ask you that. Does he do that if Ryan Reeves is on the ice? Does he do it if McDermott's on the ice? The answer is probably a resounding no. But I was a chump hit. The one on Beniers last year was a chump hit. But here's the thing. You and I, we joke around about hockey still has a physical element to it. And there is still a part of the game where you have to be able to respond and have to answer the bell and you have to have retribution. You have to police yourselves. And this team in Seattle does not have that right now. And so guys like Tyler Myers can run around and do that stuff.
That hit was on Oliver Bjorkstrand, by the way.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
As we switch,
the Beniers hit was the one last year that knocked out the All-Star game. So yeah.
Okay, switching gears. Seahawks, they've lost 3 of 4. They're in Dallas Thursday. 49ers and Eagles after that. I don't have to tell you how tough the schedule is getting for them. Rams are coming on in that division. Is a playoff spot slipping away for the Seahawks?
Yeah. Easy answer is yes. The math is not in their favor right now over the next few weeks. It's gonna be one of those things where unless they surprise, they're gonna be an underdog this week, San Francisco and Philadelphia. So for the next 3 weeks, they're gonna be the underdog in those games unless they can find a way to come up with a win against teams that will be, in some ways significantly favored in. They're gonna have to probably win out at the end of the season against teams like Pittsburgh, Tennessee and Arizona. So yeah, they're kind of on the ropes right now. It looks good if you look at the standings today. Hey, it looks fine. Minnesota losing last night helped Seattle a lot. The question down here, guys, though, is this: it's not, hey, are they a playoff team? It's, are they a contending team? It's so wild how things have just changed in terms of expectations. If our baseball team's in contention for a playoff spot, we have a parade. We raise a banner that says we have the longest winning streak in Mariners franchise history, even if you don't make the playoffs. That's their bar. It's very low down here. The Seahawks bar is really high. Pete Carroll and John Schneider have raised that bar. Even if they get into the playoffs and they're one and done, people here will not be satisfied. Now, an interesting thing about that, I think, is this, and we were talking about this with someone I was discussing this earlier for my show, the Seahawks were supposed to be kind of in a rebuilding mode last year and maybe even this year. Trading Russell Wilson away, all these draft picks. They've got, somewhere around 20 guys that are in their first or second year playing, but they went to the playoffs last year. Nobody thought they'd go to the playoffs last year. They did. So now the expectations are high again. Hey, this should be a playoff team. Why aren't they contending? All those things. I almost bring it back to our hockey team. The Ron Francis plan was to go, long term. It wasn't going to be Vegas. You weren't going to go to the playoffs the first year. They didn't. But then they have this really nice 100-point season last year, kind of in a watered-down Western Conference, get to the second round, play 14 games, and now here they are, a fringe playoff team scuffling, and our expectations have changed in Seattle. Like, what the hell's wrong with the Kraken? Like, what are you guys doing? What's the problem? What are the issues? Well, they're probably still on track, and they've got a great young system, the leading scorer in the Western League, leading scorer in the Ontario League, but our expectations have changed. So that's one of the things we kind of live with in sports is expectations, right? If you just get to the playoffs for some franchises, Canucks, that's good enough. For others, like the Seahawks, you want them to contend.
Ian, their offense. Okay, so 13 points
Nothing.
against.
I took a shot and you get nothing. Like that's like the lack of response for Tyler Myers there. Come on.
Well, in Myers' defense, he is a tall guy. No matter who the norm isn't him hitting 6'7" guys all the time. I mean, the optics never going to look good for Tyler Myers. All right, there's not a ton of guys that are 6'6", 6'7", 6'8" in the NHL, Ian. So, anyways, that's my bit on Tyler Myers.
It's a late hit. Like
okay.
He's a late hit. Like it was a chump late hit. But that's fine. We move on.
Okay.
Yes. You shouldn't hit a Portland Winterhawk great like all of York's fans. You should have a little more respect for a guy like that. Huh?
Portland Winterhawks, love them. Great franchise. 13 points against the 49ers.
Love them?
Huh?
You love the Portland Winterhawks.
The history. Hey, are you kidding me?
Where's Toigo? He's calling in right. Ron Toigo on line one.
Watch out, Rick.
Cam Neely played for the Portland Winterhawks.
There goes your luxury suite.
You just got banned from white spots forever, just like that.
I'm allowed to like other teams, Ian. I'm allowed to like other teams. My goodness.
Ian's been banned from there for years because of his days at Tri-City.
In Tri-City, the Americans.
I banned myself.
Well, your buddy Craig West out there in Tri-Cities, eh? He had a good long run. He was one of the very best. Okay, Ian, let me get this in. Seahawks. 13 points against the 49ers, 16 against the Rams. Is this offense ever going to figure it out?
Well, it's worse than that, Rick, because they haven't scored a touchdown in 20 straight possessions.
Unreal.
I mean, that's the last touchdown, first drive against the Rams game, they scored a touchdown. They haven't scored a touchdown since, and in now 4, 5, 6, 7 and 3/4 quarters. I mean, it's been a long time. I don't know. They're an odd team. They have a lot of investments. It goes back to the expectations. You invest, 2 high-paid wide receivers in DK and Tyler, a first-round pick wide receiver in Jackson Smith and Jigba. Gino's making a ton of money. You've got 2 second-round draft picks, which is an investment in the NFL and your running backs, and you're not scoring. The offensive line's got some issues. They're banged up. They got all kinds of things going on there. But, it's that the biggest question down here right now is the offense. The defense has kind of come together. They had a couple issues, but, boy, San Francisco's just a wagon, man. They chug along. They can throw it. They can run it. They do all, Harry high school trick plays, end-around stuff that Farhan love, all that kind of stuff. But the defense has played all right. It's the offense. The offense right now for the Seahawks is the issue. And here's the bad news for Seahawks fans. It doesn't get much easier Thursday because that Cowboys defense is loaded. They've got arguably the best edge rusher in the NFL in Micah Parsons. They've got the best cornerback in the NFL, Bland. I mean, they are really, really good on defense, so it's not going to get easier when we go down to Jerry's World on Thursday.
Okay, Broncos, they've won 5 straight. A playoff spot is a possibility in the AFC for them. You talked about them a little bit earlier. Is it possible for Seattle fans to feel good for Russell Wilson?
I think there's some that do, Donnie. I mean, he was the quarterback for our Super Bowl team here in Seattle, and so I think there's some that I'm. It's interesting. Last year, when they had draft picks on the line, if you were any kind of Seahawk fan, you were rooting against them. You wanted them to be bad. You wanted to get the higher draft pick. So it was a little different this year. I'll never tell somebody how to fan. So everyone's going to have their own way to do they like Russ? Do they not like Russ? I know what Russ was like in the office, in the complex over there. I can't root for him. I know how hard he made it on people. I know how difficult he was to work with. I know some of the things going on behind the scenes that just were not pleasant. And so for me, I'd never root for the guy again. And that's just because, there's a lot of good people inside the Virginia Mason Athletic Center that run the Seahawks, and he made life really, really difficult. There was kind of a wolf in sheep's clothing there for the last 3 or 4 years that he was in. It wasn't like that always. It wasn't like that in 2012. But the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, he became really hard to work with and deal with. I think you saw that even in Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers. Sometimes that position, those guys, they diva out and they just become a problem, and it needed to move on. And I think for me personally, someday Russ is going to be in the Ring of Honor, and they're going to have his name up there, and it'll be great. But, and time heals most wounds. We've seen that. But now for me personally, now is not the time. I don't root for him at all. And plus, I grew up as a fan of the Hawks in the 70s and 80s when they were in the AFC West, and the Broncos were maybe your biggest rival. So there's no part of me that could root for that organization, and not for him either. So yeah,
it was that bad. It was that bad at the Seahawks facility.
It was quietly really bad, just uncomfortable. Yeah, I mean, but like I said, I don't think Russ is alone in that. I mean, how do you divorce Aaron Rodgers into the Green Bay Packers, right? Like sometimes guys just wear out their welcome, and maybe especially in that particular position. And yeah, he was difficult. He was just difficult at the end. And so, those of us that kind of knew a little bit about that, you're like, yeah, you go do you, Russ, and we'll see you in 10 years when they put you in the Ring of Honor. And I think by then things will heal themselves. But right now, no, not at all.
I know you don't want to get into specifics. This is an interesting topic. Did he didn't treat the receptionist well, the people supposedly below him, that sort of thing?
Tried to exert a lot of I'd say the easiest way to put it is he thought he was quarterback, head coach, president, general manager, owner, director of social affairs, weight room manager, in charge of the cafeteria. Like I could go on, parking lot attendant, everything. Yeah. He was a CEO in his mind, at least. So yeah, I mean, it was time to move on. That's the thing. Like people want to blast. You guys have been around. Listen, we've all been around covering sports for a long time. There's a lot of times where there's things going on behind the scenes. You guys both know this, especially probably from the Canucks, right? And you're sitting there saying, like, people go, why did they get rid of that player? Like that makes no sense whatsoever. And then you or me or Rick or anybody, it just doesn't matter. We all know, right? Like, okay, well, there's an issue. And you can't always speak specifically what those are, but we all know why sometimes things happen. It doesn't make sense to a fan. And I'm not trying to be condescending to fans, but we all know this, right? Like when you're covering the games and you're covering the teams, things going on behind the scenes, and they make a lot more sense maybe to us why a move was made than it did to the general public. And sometimes that stuff comes out. Oftentimes it doesn't. But there's a reason, I would just say this, there's a reason that guys, move on sometimes that don't make sense on the surface, but deep down they really do.
That's why we're getting rid of Derek Wong in the next month or so.
Wait, he's the problem?
Oh, yeah.
Derek's the problem?
Well, there are a lot of
God is the problem?
There's a ton of problems here, my friend. Ton.
There's a lot of problems.
I'm looking at him right now.
Yeah, there's probably two at the top. All right.
Yeah.
And
guys
next
at my
week,
station say the same thing about my show.
Oh,
so
yeah, we've heard. They've contacted us. We've talked.
I know they have.
Thanks, Ian.
Thanks, boys.